Sony have just given us a list of the new games that are coming to their revamped PS Plus service that pretty much is an attempt to compete with Microsoft on Game Pass.
There's an awful lot we can glean from this list, and especially glean from what's not on it as opposed to what is on it a lot of the time as well. This isn't a complete list, it's kind of like a preview. We don't know if that means, hey, there's going to be another, like, there's going to be twice as many, or there's only going to be a couple more. Because if you remember, Game Pass actually shipped with like a particularly small lineup, but then it grew exponentially over time. So it's like, I think some of that's there, but it's like we can definitely pick up, is this going to be a direct Game Pass competitor from their end, or is it just going to be, it's PS Plus, but you get a load of games? It's very interesting.
Yeah, so to kick things off then, we've got 38 PS4 and PS5 titles that are first party. 6 of those are only on PS5. So that is, we'll get into it in a bit, but it's just a bunch of great games.
Yeah, it's effectively, because that's the thing. Everyone always talks about, Sony first parties, where their strength is, where their quality is. And it's just, you pay an extra couple dollars on top of PS Plus, which if you're on PS5 and playing something that isn't free to play, you're likely paying for that anyway. So it's like, here's an extra couple dollars and you have access to what is basically everything first party that Sony have done in the modern day.
Yeah, and then when we kick that over to third parties, 24 third parties, 6 of which are PS5.
Yeah, which compared to the amount of third party games that are available and comparing that to what Game Pass does for third parties and for indies and stuff, it's very much a completely, almost like the direct opposite, where you're really not going to be on Game Pass for Xbox first party now. Maybe in the future when they actually release a bunch of games, but right now it's like, that's where all the third party lives, that's where all the relationships and all the money they can throw at third parties works. Not quite so for Sony, at least yet.
Yeah, and then when we get to the back catalogue, it's kind of interesting. I think, I hope that their preview tried to focus on their recent heavy hitters and the Ubisoft portion, and that they actually have more coming, because they're a little bit more weak here. So they revealed 5 first-party PS1 games, 4 third parties, and only 1 PSP game.
Yeah, which is Super Stardust Portable from Housemarque.
Yeah, so that kind of felt weak. And then when we go to the PlayStation 2, well, there's no native PS2 games. It's basically 13 PS4 remasters of PS2 games. Which, I mean, in fairness, like, good. There's good stuff there.
Yeah, that includes the like of Jack. That includes Dark Cloud from the Japan Studios. It's like Wild Arms 3 as well. It's like great stuff, but it's like, it's so small. For this being their, hey, this is our legacy as PlayStation. Our legacy is this incredible back catalogue of all the PS1 and PS2 games you love. And they're like, yeah, sorry, we've done what we can, but they clearly, at least at this point, if they're trying, they're like, nothing's bore fruit yet, essentially.
Yeah, and then I guess when we go to the PS3, I think there's the obvious issue that PS3 was a very different console and how it ran, so we're not going to be getting native games or anything like that. PS3 stuff will be ran via streaming. Yep. And we are seeing a drop in quantity from PS Now. Maybe, again, this is only a preview.
Yeah, it's like, if it's a preview, it seems like a lot of the license agreements they maybe had for PS Now aren't carrying over into this, unless they unless they're hiding something almost, because there's so much stuff that, like, it wasn't super high quality, right? PS Now was very much a kind of, if you're into specific things, you might find use for this. Like, I know all of like the Atelier games and stuff was there, like a lot of Koei Tecmo, a lot of Capcom. And I was like, okay, that's interesting if you're more into the niche stuff. But in terms of a big offering, it wasn't really much. And it's like, they've definitely just went, no, we're going to focus on trying to be a bigger offering with this. And it's just kind of, it's really disappointing, honestly. I looked at PS Now and went, if I had been subbed to PS Now, I might have played a bunch of these games. But now the opportunity is going away. That's obviously my perspective as someone who plays like niche kind of games, but yeah.
Yeah, now I guess if you do like the big, the big first parties, that sort of thing, that's definitely their focus here. Yeah. Now that said, a lot of that you kind of had already with the PS Plus collection.
That's the
I think that's the bit where it is a really good offering. We already had the PS Plus collection though, so so basically for the PS5 front, Forbidden West and Uncharted collection are not there, and Last of Us Part 2. I think that's the only like major first-party PS4 game that isn't there, but then that just makes us wonder, will there be some sort of new edition of that game for the PS5, and maybe that would explain there not being much inclusion here. But overall, the point pretty much does stand. Not a massive amount new from the PS Plus collection.
Yeah, it's mostly like the new stuff that is actually kind of good is a lot of their Japan studio stuff is there for the PS1 and the PS2 remasters. And that very much feels like a, hey, we're sorry, we actually do love our Japanese games. I know we shuttered the studio and we're not going to do anything about that. Whoops, sorry about that. But we actually are going to, it might be lip service. But at least looking, I was like, okay, there's the Ape Escapes, there's Dark Cloud, there's Arc the Lad, there's Rogue Galaxy. Clearly stuff they had just at hand.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, okay, you are respecting your legacy to a degree here.
Yeah, it's good. There's a whole new generation of people who will probably never have known these games exist, will be able to browse to that PS1 section and actually see some stuff. On the PS4 front from Japan Studio, basically everything that is there.
Yeah, Gravity Rush. That's good. Gravity Rush Remastered, Gravity Rush 2, work away, great stuff.
Yeah, of course, Japan Studios. Solved.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think there's probably a little bit more to that story than we know. Just because I think everyone was talking about all the creators and stuff left before the studio was shuttered, but then it's hard to know. It's the zeitgeist will believe that it's Sony putting pressure on the Japanese studios to sell more, as a response to them moving more Western focused, and that's very much definitely true. But at the same time, their games were a little bit underperforming, so it's like kind of maybe they just wanted to do something else. I mean, compared to Square Enix recently going, why are we wasting our time on Western games? We're fucking stupid. The West will buy our Japanese games. We just need to actually sell them to them. It's like maybe Sony will learn that a little bit late. Maybe they'll learn that from looking at Square Enix and going, can we make a Dark Cloud 3? Holy shit, let's do it. Maybe.
Now, on some of that Square Enix Western stuff, funny enough, we're seeing Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy game actually be here. And the third parties is where it gets interesting. That's where they really have got to fight with Microsoft. Because we talk about all this first party stuff. That's not going to change any minds, right? Everyone already knows that you have to have a PlayStation for those.
Yeah.
So third party competitiveness is where it's really important. And they do have some strong things for some people.
Yeah.
Right, so the Guardians of the Galaxy game, which of course has been on Game Pass, but it's there as well, kind of showing that, that thing financially underperformed and they are just happy to sell it to these services. It seems perhaps a situation where when they do that, they can just get a deal that they're financially happy with, and perhaps it just means there's a bit less risk or uncertainty. But Assassin's Creed Valhalla is there, and I think that's the thing that's actually quite big here. Yeah. That is a big game with a stupid amount of content, and I believe it's a game that's actually performing better now than it was at launch, off the back of all of that content.
Yeah, so that's the thing that I think is interesting with that in particular, and especially to me, a lot of this comes down to, because obviously people talked about Xbox, rumors of them rolling Game Pass into Gold and the Xbox Live stuff, but that's not come to fruition. Obviously there's Ultimate, but it's like that's a kind of, you go Game Pass, then you go the Ultimate route. Feels a bit different to them going, you've got PS Plus already because, we give you decent free games, all of which is still going to happen. You're still going to get a couple free games a month. But it's like, okay, just fire us a couple $. And I think when it comes to the Valhalla and the Guardians, I think that's where they have they don't need to upsell too hard, right? They need to get a couple extra $. For you 1 month. Then you have fun and you enjoy it and then you stick around. And that's where something like Valhalla is like a really great tentpole for that, especially because, obviously, I think in the core gaming market, everyone's kind of looking at Assassin's Creed and going, can you please make something different for a change? Jesus Christ, we're so tired of this. But clearly, in the actual results, that's not what everyone who's playing these games feels like, because Valhalla is actually, doing so well. So I think that might just be a really strong part of they've almost kind of, we'll have to see how it goes with Xbox and Activision, because obviously Activision Game Pass stuff, whenever they're merged, but it looks like there's a battle line drawn in the middle. It's here's Ubisoft and PlayStation siding with each other a little bit, and here's Activision and Xbox on the other side. That only really applies to Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, because it'll be available everywhere, but I think it's interesting.
I thought that part was interesting. So I guess that's a little bit of an overview. There's certainly some gaps that are disappointing. I'm still happy that Jack is there, but I think a lot of people are kind of thinking about the PS1. They're thinking Lara Croft. Where are the Lara Croft games? A few other things as well. Where's my copy of Croc?
Where's Legend of Dragoon?
I'm the only Croc fan.
Yeah, it's like there's so much stuff, but that's where I think it gets kind of disappointing, right? Disappointing for now, possibly better in the future, because one of the things that everyone's always talked about when it comes to these legacy games is licensing, right?
Yeah.
You can't just, I mean, they wouldn't get away with it, but you can't just find a ROM online and go, oh yeah, we'll just give that to people. You can't just, find a disc in the warehouse and go, well, we have the discs, so clearly we must be able to sell the game. They would have to speak to all of these companies with all of these old games and go, hey, can we get, we don't want to use a ROM because that's bullshit. We don't want to have to reverse engineer if we want to add anything. Do you guys have any gold copies, any master copies, any source code that we can use to, make these new, especially when Sony are adding some functionality to their first party PS1 games? Just a little bit of most of it's like emulator stuff,
okay,
like rewinds and save states and stuff like that. But it's you have to solve these licensing issues. That's the key. You can't just go, oh, hey Square, can we have Tomb Raider? Because the first Tomb Raider games are probably owned by 47 different entities at this point in time.
Yeah.
Same with even stuff like the old Square games. That likely requires a team of IP people at Square to spend 6 months down the archives trying to find stuff. And that's where the problem rises, where stuff is going to take a lot of time, and it's unfortunate they don't have it ready for this preview kind of thing. It's we'll have to see what it looks like in a year, half a year for it to grow forward. But it's certainly really should have tried a bit harder by now. But then maybe this is a relatively quick implementation to try and beat out Game Pass or something like that. Hard to know.
Yeah, it's a pity. I think that's where they can get a lot of strengths. It's just going to take time. At least they have a good structure with a solid financial incentive to actually, get us Lara Croft, get us all those things. Now, before we actually just jump into talking about some of the games, there is one nice thing here. So if for the original PlayStation and PSP generation, you basically bought digital versions of those games, and then they become available via the work they're doing in this service, you won't actually have to buy this service in order to play those games. So basically, you don't have to repurchase it. If the game you already own appears here, you'll just get to play it.
Yeah,
which is nice. So that's good.
That's something that I kind of didn't expect. I thought they would just wipe the slate clean and say, sorry, it's only available here. But what I think this kind of means, and this is where people are a bit unsure, and Sony should maybe step up their communication game a little tiny bit. But there's so many games that you could buy for the PS3 that were PS1 games. And they had obviously the PS1 emulator running on the PS3. So it seems like they are just going to work. Say, hey, here's the PS1 emulator on the PS5. So people are kind of wondering, okay, does this mean all of the games I bought will be playable at some point? Or does it mean only the games that you make work for your PS Plus? But if this is a case where, because the Chrono Cross stuff recently, whenever the Chrono Cross remaster came out and then there was license issues, that was a lot of people who bought the original game on the PS3 so they could download and play the PS Classic. So it's if those people suddenly have access to all their games as part of this move, this might be a kind of okay, they are definitely getting their legacy secured. They're definitely going, someone, Jim Ryan or someone under him actually sat down and went, what have we been doing? We've got the PS1 and PS2. Why are we not selling these games? Why are people not... This is so much value for our platform. Why is it not actually there? I think they may have actually asked that, and they're kind of solving that problem, which is fantastic.
So it's just run through some of the games, just to give an impression here, because certainly if you're not already heavily bought into this platform, the deal here is great.
That's the other part. If you're using this to target people who aren't historically PS players or have missed out on the PS4 era, especially people who are buying a PS5 but never played a PS4, this shit is literally maybe tens of thousands of hours of exceptional game.
Yeah, so to run through Alienation from Housemarque, Bloodborne.
Yep.
Let's get that.
Please, where's the 60 FPS?
Concrete, I know, right? Yeah. Concrete Genie, Days Gone, of course, from Bend, Dead Nation Apocalypse Edition, Death Stranding, and the Director's Cut on PS4 and PS5. You get that. Demon Souls PS5, the big launch title. You get that. Destruction All-Stars. Remember that one. Everybody's Golf from Japan Studio. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut.
That's
PS5 version.
That's already we're at G. What? Yeah, we're at G, And that is, well, we've started G, and that is 3 extreme tentpole games.
Yeah.
Wild.
God of War, Gravity Rush 2, Gravity Rush Remastered, Horizon Zero Dawn, Infamous First Light, and Second Son, Knack! Little Big Planet
Where's
3,
Knack
Loco Roco Remastered, Loco Roco 2, Marvel Spider-Man on PS4, Miles Morales as well, Matterfall from Housemarque.
So if you bought any PS5 games, fuck you.
Yeah, I feel a bit stupid. Medieval, Patapon Remastered, Patapon 2, Resogun, Returnal. So, I mean, it's big time for Housemarque. Of course, Returnal, big game.
That's basically every Sony first-party game.
Shadow of the Colossus, the remaster version for the PS4. You get that. Tearaway Unfolded from Media Molecule. Last Guardian, which I know certainly had its development issues, but that's a great game to get. Last of Us Remastered, Last of Us Left Behind, Until Dawn, Nathan Drake Collection, Uncharted 4, Lost Legacy, Wipeout Omega Collection, and then you go to the third parties and... just Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that's a pretty big game. There's likes of Arkham Knight, City Skylines, Celeste, the people who played like Control Ultimate Edition, that's pretty sweet. Dead Cells, that's a great indie. You've got the Far Cry's, FF15, For Honor, Hollow Knight, Guardians of the Galaxy, MK11, and like when you actually go to the lists of games being played, I always forget that like Mortal Kombat's pretty big.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Naruto, NBA 2K22. Yes. Woo! Outer Wilds. That is a brilliant game.
Yeah.
Red Dead Redemption 2. That's another great example. I've never really got around to playing it. I haven't bought it. This makes sense for me.
Yep.
Resident Evil, Soul Calibur, the South Park game, and of course, The Crew 2.
Yeah, for sure.
And Tom Clancy's The Division. How thrilling.
Yeah.
The thing is, this is not a complete list. So the thing is, have they reserved any really big, like, newsworthy titles for a future reveal? Because if so, for an already heavily bought into the PlayStation market person, this might not be overall the best thing. Undeniably incredible as an incentive to pick up a PS5.
That's the thing that's the difference with Game Pass in this. Game Pass is, here's a bunch of very varied third-party games that are like really kind of cool, but that kind of suffers from lacking the big hitter. Obviously, they've got Halo Infinite's campaign,
Forza.
Yeah, but that's kind of it for like this is the identity of Xbox. It's like Game Pass is kind of not really very Xboxy. It's just something you play on your Xbox, whereas this is the first-party approach of this is a Sony machine. And however you feel about these games, obviously they are all, like a lot of them are multi-million sellers. They are genuinely massive games, and a lot of them very high quality. I will say the one thing about all the third party though is, for someone who's at PlayStation Plus for a long time, most of this list is worthless. Yes. These are all very clearly like agreements they already had in the bank, because I'm fairly sure, maybe like Guardians of the Galaxy and Red Dead Redemption 2 I don't have access to. Maybe not South Park, but most of these I'm fairly sure I've seen on PS Plus. So for me, as someone who's been on PS Plus for years, since I got like an annual deal and stacked it for a bit, it's like, it's not really much. But again, it's like how much will that change? Because we do know for sure that they are reaching out to publishers. They are reaching out to indies to try and get them on board. There's been loads of reports on that from different indies, and that's just the case of, are they just not ready yet? But then that's the thing, if it's because they did say this will update every month for the extra tier, which is the PS4 and PS5 games, and then the premium deluxe tier, which is the same tier but different names, for the classic games will update every 2 weeks. I think they said twice a month. I think they've got like a really good like conveyor belt of just games that will come, but they've kind of said, here's our hand. And they've showed their hand, and it's very first-party led, which is...
I do think there's like one little bit of a weakness-ish, and that is just that the PS3 titles are streaming only, whereas an Xbox 360 title that moves over to availability on Microsoft won't be streaming only.
They need to solve that.
I think that's definitely something, because I look through here and Ratchet and Clank games.
Yeah, that's...
And, that... I wouldn't exactly want to play them streaming. There's great games like, Demon's Souls, Ico, all the Demon's Souls. I mean, you can play the original PS3 version, but there is the new PS5 one. Also in this, Fear, but I don't want to play Fear in streaming. So I think those things are, issues.
Yeah, the Ratchet and Insomniac, yeah, the Sucker Punch games, Infamous. Ratchet and Infamous being here is definitely like a, come on, solve the problem. Or at least just literally hand them like 100 mil to remaster those games.
100 mil?
To remaster all of them.
Oh.
So like,
Bloody hell.
you want to see all of the Infamous games that aren't on PS4 available on PS4 and 5. You want to see all the Ratchet games available on PS4. Because even Tools of Destruction's missing there. So you can't even experience the whole Ratchet and Clank thing. Especially because none of the PS2 games are here.
That's a big loss.
It's like, that is so much of your legacy. Where is it? Please tell us where it is. Instead of going, here's the games, and we'll give you no further communication. Yeah. Sorry.
So it is only a preview.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen that there are some mixed elements, but there's also some really good strengths. I think I'm an example of... this doesn't matter to you too much because you own a lot of these games. Yeah. Maybe feel a bit silly about that.
I definitely do.
Now, for me, I own a few of these games, like Spider-Man, Ghost of Tsushima. Yeah. But there's other games like Returnal where I have your disc. I should probably give you your disc back. But like, I don't own them. So for me, this is a really good value. And I think if you're somebody who's been on the fence, now you can go in and for a low initial outlay, you just you can play all this stuff. And that is a thing, because I know a lot of people in the comments will talk about like, hey, I like to own my games.
Yeah.
But ultimately, think about how much this is. And if you look at the spread of, like, I don't know, Starling and Klarna and all of those, Monzo Flex, all of these buy now, pay in installment things, which, I mean, certainly that's rumbly business. But it does show that and of course, after you use one of those services, you do actually own the thing. But still, it's the access to the thing. People are generally, I think, more okay with not putting in a massive amount of money, and they just want to get the shit now. I think if you look at a lot of these first parties, now undoubtedly, yes, I know a lot of this was in the PS Plus collection, but the inclusion of some of those PS5 games here I think is pretty big. For a lot of people, they'll hear their friends talk about Miles Morales being brilliant, Returnal being brilliant, a few other of those games as well, and they'll think, oh, okay, cool, Demon's Souls as well. Do I have to spend 200 quid on top of buying my PS5? I can't afford that. Whereas with this, you jump in and, like, 20 quid? Or 15 in a month or whatever, and you just play all these games.
Yeah, or, you get the annual. Say you get, you go for your PS5, and you go, oh, well, okay. Do I get the disc version? And then buy a load of discs? I don't have that money. What? Oh, I could get the digital version. And then I could get PS Plus extra for a year for, like, 85 quid or something, which means you're still going to be paying less than you would for the PS5 with a disc copy.
Yeah.
And then that locks you into, I mean, that's the thing, it locks you in. So the idea of ownership is long gone to the wind to you. But generally speaking, that will just be like, hey, you can now just pay 80 quid a year for access to all of these games. And a lot of it depends on, like, when will they add Horizon? When will they add the Uncharted Legacy Collection? Because that's Legacy of Thieves Collection, I should say. Because that's the big thing. That's
and those are all big marketing beats that they can use generically. And also, when it comes to people buying a new console, if they want to do a bundle.
Yep.
Now the thing is, they're not going to have a pressure to do that right now because they are supply constrained, not demand constrained. Yeah. So they don't really need to go around having deep discount promotions. But if they feel they need to do that, they could do a killer bundle of just buy PS5, all digital, comes with a year, whatever, in a holiday situation. Like if they feel like they need a little bit more to compete with Microsoft on, and it's a time where Microsoft don't have as many first parties as Sony do, it certainly gives them a lot to work with.
Like on the marketing beat alone, the idea of a year of, Xbox Series S, or we'll say Xbox Series X, with a year of Game Pass, for someone who's not really played games in a while, or is moving to a new platform, the idea of them marketing all of the first party games on PS Extra with a year that comes bundled is way stronger.
Yeah.
It's like, quality may differ. Maybe you like Xbox Game Pass, like third parties and indies more, but in terms of like a marketing beat for the, I guess, broader audience, it's such a clear win. Such a clear win.
Yeah. So, like, ultimately, we are seeing both these companies be a lot more competitive. The Ubisoft side of it, like, we didn't cover it too much, but it's these 27 games right now, like Valhalla, For Honor, The Crew 2, Child of Light, Eagle Flight, a bunch of Far Cries, Legendary Fishing, the two South Park games, Star Trek Bridge Crew, I should really get around to playing that. So it's like not really their best pick, but there's more coming. This list is going to double by the end of the year. And say what you will about Ubisoft games, but if that turns into most of the Assassin's Creeds are there, all the Assassin's Creeds are there, then that can start to become more competitive as well. So ultimately, we'll have to see what the long-term health and sustainability is like for the industry, but at the very least right now, all of this is definitely leading to consumers having a hell of a lot of, I will not say value, I'll maybe say access to value.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how these companies are fighting. They want to give you the best deal to ensure that they capture you into their platform, and that can work pretty okay to you for right now.
Yep, and that also leads into, if we're talking about overall industry in terms of the overall economic market situation, obviously people around the world are, especially in the US and the UK, are kind of terrified about prices of stuff at the minute. The cost of living shooting up all around the world for, for whatever reason, the end of the pandemic, war, stuff like that. But like that's like a real thing these people be thinking about. They'll be thinking, oh, obviously our games aren't getting more expensive. We're still selling our $70 discs, but will people be able to afford that less?
Yeah.
So the value options get way more important, and this is a good value option.
Well, just remember, how recently it was that we were talking about games. We were talking about the $70 game, and you look at the comments of our videos, people are not happy about the idea of the $70 game.
I'm not.
Yeah, now loads of these $70 games are, included in a pretty cheap to access service.
Yeah, which is a part of it is the whole like tiered access thing.
Yeah.
Where if you've got more disposable income, you'll be happier to buy the $70 game at launch. Something that I am definitely going to stop doing because, or at least be more careful about doing, because with Deathloop and Forbidden West, that's tremendous disappointment for me in both cases. So I'm now a lot happier to hold on a bit because value is more important now.
Yeah.
And that's the thing where if that's going to be the case for more people, then people like super fans will buy the shit out of these right away. But everyone else can just go, I'll maybe buy them later.
Yeah, there's, I guess, what matters to a consumer, access or ownership. Yep. I think for a hell of a lot of people, it's actually access.
This is the thing, right? I will pay a premium for ownership if I want the ownership, but I'm happy to pay a lot less for access because I know access is worth less, so I'll pay less for it. And I think that's like a kind of almost like back in the day when I would rent games from Activision, $3.75 to play a game for a weekend. I know I won't be able to get it after that weekend without paying more, but it was, for someone who had no money because I was literally a child, worked out a lot better.
Yeah. Plus, like, there's so many games where it's like, you own something that you're just going to not play after you finished it.
That's a real thing for a lot of people.
Yeah. So that's basically the situation. Stuff's heating up. It's all getting very interesting. There's not too much else to say until Sony reveal a little bit more of their lineup. So we will take our leave for now, I suppose. All I'd say is, do you think this is competitive? Is this something that would lure you more toward their platform, knowing you can access all of these games for that price point? So let us know. See you next time.